open and welcome all the members of the public to our meeting. I'll just go through the few little preliminary bits and then we'll go on to public question time. So the acknowledgement of country, Nala Kardich Wajak Mort Kayan Kardak Nidja Walyala Puja word Dijnang Wajak Kardajan word knitting Bulla Yaye. We acknowledge the Wajak people as the traditional owners of the greater Fremantle Walyalap area, and we recognise that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important today. Apologies or leaves of absence. Do we have any? Everyone's here. Yeah. Disclosures of interests by members. Councillor Pemberton.
Yeah, I have an interest in the harbours submission because I work for the Department of Transport. So I'm declaring that as an interest. However, I don't have anything to do with that specific project, so I will stay, and I don't believe my impartiality is affected.
No. No others? No? Responses to previous... Oh, Councillor Jones, sorry.
Yes, I'm not a member of the committee and don't have a vote, but I'll declare an interest in item 22091, an impartiality interest. My daughter, Julia Jones, my son-in-law, Dylan Smith, and a neighbour, Rob Fittock, are members of one of the bids. And there does seem to be some confusion about impartiality interest, so I'll just read the relevant bit from the regulations. It says, following disclosure of an interest affecting impartiality, the member's involvement in the meeting continues as if no interest exists. And that's different to the way impartiality interest used to be prior to 2019, which caused a lot of problems with community groups not being represented by their elected member because they had to declare an interest if they were a member. So I just want to make that clear. So that's the current regulation regarding impartiality.
Thank you. Responses to previous questions taken on notice. I don't believe we have any. No? No. Thank you. So we'll now move to public question time. And I will just mention we do have Councillor Jones and Councillor Lorver here who aren't members of the committee but are keen to be here tonight because of the content of the agenda. So I'm keen to, just in the interests of fairness, go from one person who's registered to speak, perhaps on behalf of the social club, and another who's registered to speak on behalf of the Bolo, so that, you know, there is no kind of, it's more equitable that way, I feel. So I will work through, perhaps the simplest is I just ask quickly the name, what some of these people are, what I team some of these people are from, so that we can work our way through that. So Elizabeth Smith, I believe, is the Bolo. Yes? Yep. You're representing the Bolo. Yep. Paul Leonard. Bolo. Sharon Pratt. Sarah Johnson. Belinda Steele. Christine Oldmeadow. Raymond Grenfell. Rebecca Thompson. Ross McCallum must be the social club. Dylan Smith must be the Bolo. And Julia Jones, the Bolo. We've got... Sorry? Yes, the two here. Yeah, we've got some others which I've managed to work out from the forms. So perhaps I'll start with Elizabeth Smith. Can I remind people we have 3 minutes per person to speak. Could I also advise that the content of the submissions made to council are confidential and should not be discussed in this room. The only time they should be discussed is if we vacated the chamber and voted to go behind closed doors. So we need to keep the content of comments made pretty much to what's being presented to us as councillors in the agendas. And if you could keep to the time limits, because we have read all of the documents. This is the second time it's come back to council. We've also read the submissions that were made at the request of the council between the last council meeting and this meeting. So, okay, so I'll invite people to speak. Elizabeth Smith, please.
Hopefully, for the North Freo Bowling Club to build upon these significant efforts. Let me take you on a short journey. At first glance, the North Freo Bolo will be a recreational club, especially for North Fremantle folk. But look further. It can be the core community hub for local young families, arguably the lifeblood of the community, who may originally have met and formed friendships when their young children were at the primary school. Now, with older children at many different schools and beyond, the Bolo fills the vacuum to become the new meeting place for families. The actual building and facilities will be the focus for individuals and families, but it will be the Bolo leaders themselves, the people driving the new club, who will determine its success. It is they who will have the energy and foresight to encourage the community as a whole to grasp this chance of ownership of a valued hub. It is they who will provide the opportunities for members to have regular engagement with others, to encourage members to have personal contributions to support the club, and to enable meaningful communication between members. I personally have worked with Julia and Dylan on various projects over many years. I've also worked closely with Robert during my active voluntary work at the North Fremantle Bowling Club for more than 5 transition years since 2007. I know they have excellent skills and business ethics, and I have every confidence in their abilities to run the North Freo Bolo. Importantly, they also have the North Freo community very much at heart. I believe the successful leaseholder should be a North Fremantle-led club, while certainly encouraging and welcoming others from the wider Fremantle area and localities beyond. I would be concerned if the North Freo Bolo's strategic approach had to be modified to its detriment to accommodate a different approach. I feel this could dilute enthusiasm and commitment, which would certainly not be helpful to a newly formed club. North Freo is a small area on a peninsula, which has a huge future planning and development issues and opportunities. It would greatly benefit from having a social heart hub where a sense of community is fostered to benefit North Freo's future. I sincerely hope the North Freo Bolo will be granted this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Look, I'm just looking. We've got quite a number of Bolo people and fewer of the social club. And last meeting we had more social club people than we had Bolo people. So I might do, say, 3 Bolo people and then intersperse that with a social club person. So if we go to Paul Leonard.
Good evening. Obviously, you know who I am. Paul Leonard. I'm a long-time resident of North Fremantle. I played bowls at the North Fremantle Bowling Club. It's a very long family history personally for me, as my mother and father were both life members of the bowling club, who are now both deceased. Both were barmenders at the North Fremantle Bowling Club, and it's taught me a lot of long life lessons to go through that club. And it is a very unique kind of an area. It's quite small, but again, other people are well welcome, obviously, to come down to the club. It creates a lot of history in itself, and it means a great deal to me if the North Freo Bolo bid wins, and I honestly think they'll do an outstanding job, and that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I just ask the 2 people who are online, are they still? Okay, all right. Sharon Pratt.
Good evening. I'm here on behalf of the North Freo Bolo Club, um, and I'm speaking as a volunteer member of the steering committee of the Bolo Club. I bring to the North Fremantle Bowling Club 5 years' experience in running a club. I was the club manager for the Navy Club for 5 years, and in the first 2 years, I was able to lift the revenue from 235 thousand to 535,000 in the first 2 years. So by accessing many and varied type of functions and things that I had run. I've had extensive experience running licensed premises for over the last 10 years, and I've held an approved manager's license for the last 10 years. So I'm fully across all the um, serving of alcohol requirements, including people's limits and requirements for the liquor and licensing law. Um, I also ran a lot of varied events. One was one of the last events that Uncle Archie Roach was present at, fundraisers for the earthquake in the Himalayas, the Tamil Cricket Club, and many other diverse groups. We've managed to hold a lot of other types of things as well. What I'm trying to sort of get over is that the North Fremantle Bolo Club would be a club that would be interested in being very diverse and running concerts and different types of functions. It won't be restricted just to a very, family orientated. It'll be a whole lot of different things that we could do to generate income for the Bolo Club. I also understand the need for strict governance of a club. I have completed the club manager's course run by Clubs WA and attended many of their courses for clubs. Whilst I was managing the club, I was required to act as the secretary of the committee, and I have understanding of the governance also required for a club that the Department of Mines, Industry, Regulation and Safety expect of a club. Also, prior to being a club manager at the Navy Club, I was also an area bank manager with ANZ, so I have extensive banking knowledge and customer service, as well as financial management. And at this stage, I'm happy working if the North Fremantle Bolo Club are successful with um, uh, their lease tonight. I will be able to assist them in getting their club up and running fairly fast and as a volunteer. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now invite Raymond Grenfell.
Hi. I'm Raymond Grenfell. Some of you know me. I guess most of you know me now after speaking at this. I'm president of the North Fremantle Social Club, and tonight I'd just like to talk to the idea of collaboration, as I believe this is key to the situation that we find ourselves in regards to the former North Fremantle Bowls Club, and also given that last council meeting, collaboration was what was really requested out of that meeting. So I guess a little bit of quick background on the North Fremantle Social Club. When we first came together as the North Fremantle Social Club to activate the old Bowls Club back in 2018 at requests from the city and locals, including members of the old club, we did so in the spirit of collaboration. We, the North Fremantle Social Club, mostly didn't know each other. We weren't exactly friends or neighbours, but we shared a vision for a genuinely inclusive, accessible community space. And we all had a connection to and a long-standing involvement and investment in the old North Freo Bowls Club. In that period in 2018 and 2019, through much community consultation and meetings with the former club, as facilitated by the city, we were always open and welcoming of collaboration. When that was not necessarily reciprocated, we continued our efforts of collaboration and community activation. Later, when approached by members of the North Fremantle community to door knock and circulate a petition calling for the activation of the former Bowls Club, we again acted in the spirit of collaboration, spending many weekends walking the streets of North Fremantle, speaking to residents about the community asset. Then much more recently, when we were approached by Peter Blackhall, who heard of our efforts to activate the club, we again acted in the spirit of collaboration, meeting with Peter and others who now make up the North Rio Bolo bid. We approached those meetings with an eagerness to work together. When they chose not to work with us, we nevertheless continued with our open and collaborative efforts. And this is expressed in our EOI that has attracted the support of an incredible diversity of groups and individuals, including over 20 peak social, cultural, and artistic bodies, from the Ethnic Communities Council of WA to Fremantle Biennale, all of which are in dire need of community space. Furthermore, we continued our open collaboration and consultation with the local and broader community, organising multiple community forums, surveys, fundraising events, and door knocking the area. And now, after council members requested that the two groups, the North Rio Social Club and the North Rio Bolo, work together, we approached this in genuine good faith collaboration, proposing to the Bolo an amalgamation of the two committees. And even despite their unwillingness to do this, we can reaffirm that if we are successful, we invite all members of the Bolo to become members of the North Rio Social Club and get involved in our committee. We welcome collaboration with everyone, no matter their background, identity, or where they live. I guess finally, in reflecting on both the former club and now Bolo's hesitation to collaborate with us, I want to say that I understand. I spent my early childhood in a small country town. I can understand the localism and the fear of so-called outsiders. But this is Fremantle. It's a place that thrives on collaboration and an inclusive community, where it shouldn't matter which side of the river you live, which school you went to, or how much money you have. And I strongly believe our community spaces should reflect that. I'm proud of the diversity and inclusiveness demonstrated by the North Fremantle Social Club. I hope that the elected members can see that beyond our impressive EOI, we are offering much more. We are offering a vision where everyone in Fremantle can work together in the activation and creation of genuine, empowered community. Thank you.
Thank you. Go to Sarah Johnson.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I came to North Fremantle by accident, really, because when my husband and I wanted to buy our first home, we desperately wanted to be in Fremantle, but it wasn't to be, and it was such a happy accident because we discovered the most vibrant, inclusive community that actually reminded me a lot of the little wheatbelt town that I grew up in. So you can imagine my surprise when I decided to book the North Fremantle Bowling Club for my daughter's 5th birthday and was told by the bowling club at the time that they didn't have children's parties. In fact, they only had parties for members and they weren't taking on any more memberships. And it really shocked me because it wasn't the North Fremantle that I'd come to love. But after speaking to a lot of the people in North Fremantle, I found out that it was an experience shared by many of the community members. And I think that those experiences, in some part, provided a catalyst for the Bolo's bid. The Bolo Steering Committee are best placed to manage a community hub like the bowling club, not only because they did their research well into other clubs and they consulted really thoroughly in the community, but because they are all emotionally invested in North Fremantle. I'm sure I can speak on behalf of all of them when I say to hear someone from Coolbellup or Bicton, Cottesloe, I think I've even heard someone from as far north as Kingsley say, wow, the vibe on the North Fremantle strip is awesome. And that kind of thing just makes our hearts sing. They are the best people to promote and share that vibe. And also, they are the best people to preserve that harbour heritage where on a weekend you would unwind by playing a game of bowls. That stuff is really important, that heritage, not just to North Fremantle, but I think to the wider Fremantle Council. So they have my wholehearted support. and I really hope that they will have yours too. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Sarah Johnson, yes? Yep. Belinda Steele.
Good evening. Yes, my name is Belinda Steele, also known as Bindi, and I'm here to support the North Fremantle Bolo bid. I've lived in North Fremantle for 17 years, and I can account for each of the members on the committee. I know they're a fantastic calibre of personnel sort of on that committee. Their skills are fabulous, and they really have got the background that we need to get a successful bowling club back up and running. I just really wanted to make 2 points that how important the bowling club is to the community of North Fremantle and broader, but that my experience is that I spent 10 years living in a very high density format in North Fremantle, an apartment raising a family, and the bowling club was such a flexible venue, an accommodating venue for all sorts of social gatherings. And it really became an extension of our apartment. It was sort of a community living room, if you like. It's just a wonderful facility, and all communities need to have something like it. You can have meetings there for your strata companies, or you can have birthday parties. It's just really endless, the flexibility that the bowling club provided us. I think also it's very important for the school community, because it also allows a facility for additional education or extensions to your children's education. So you can find classes there to do with drama or music, as we have had with the String Beans and the Bean Sprouts and the youth orchestras that have been run there over the years. So I just wanted to make those points and say that I think that the North Fremantle Bolo is a group that can really provide that welcoming, accommodating and flexible facility once again. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Christine Oldmeadow.
Hi all, I'm the president of the school P&C at North Fremantle Primary, and I've been a resident of North Fremantle for 22 years and former chair of the school board. I just wanted to say how impressed I was with the consultation process that the Bolo group took. Their process of getting people around and sharing ideas was quite inspiring. It was very inclusive and family friendly. I have attempted to be involved in the bowling club in the early years of my the early 2000s, fairly unsuccessfully, as it sort of folded at that time. What I really see is that there's so much potential for collaboration with the school. When our family joined the school, it was incredibly small with 70 children, and I've witnessed it grow to 170 children with strong kindy numbers. The big difference in the kindy is that all of the kindy kids are from our local area now. They're all walking to school. They're all kids that live locally. That shows the changing demographic in North Fremantle, and there's lots of young families keen to be involved in a facility, and it gives that extension of space that Bindi referred to. I see the Bolo group with its connections to local and school families as being best placed to work collaboratively with the school and with the community, and to engage the school with the broader community. It could be a venue for informal P&C meetings where we have community members attend, and that's something we're really working strongly on, is engaging with the community to extend our volunteer base as parents become overcommitted and busy. These community members are a valuable asset for the school, and I see the Bolo as a future venue for lots of other events that the school could facilitate, which gets us outside of the education department grounds, which was a big thing during COVID when we weren't allowed to have people in the school. I wholly support the Bolo group, and they have my family's full support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll go to Rebecca Thompson.
Hi, I'm Beck Thompson, the Secretary of the North Fremantle Social Club. I firstly want to say thank you to those councillors and the Mayor who heard us out in the previous council meeting, and to those who have taken the time to read our proposal and have requested further information. The immense support and momentum behind this project in pockets all over the city of Fremantle has been humbling. There's power behind us to keep going, and that's why we felt it was our responsibility to speak up one last time and do the project justice. Getting the social club off the ground has been a truly wonderful journey of community building, collaboration, and friendships new and old. When I was first approached about starting a social club back in 2019, I met a group of locals, some familiar, some not, who all shared a common view that we wanted to see the North Freo Bowls Club activated and dedicated to the needs of the community. We spoke about the need for a space that changes and grows with us, that expresses the identity of Fremantle as our community changes and grows. When we approached the North Freo Bowlo group, we both had different ideas of what collaboration would look like. We proposed to have a joint committee, which was unfortunately rejected. The Bolo would instead like to consult with us moving forward, whereas we saw collaboration as having a seat at the table. We're not a box to be ticked among a sea of other stakeholders. For us, this is and always was about empowering members of our community, increasing accessibility, and encouraging active participation in decision making. It's not by accident that I've volunteered so much time and effort to this project. I know the good that can be achieved through public assets and services, and that's why I've dedicated a large chunk of my career to defending and building capacity into our public sector. This project, in my own backyard, comes from a belief that we leave nobody behind when we take care of our public assets. Our proposal demonstrates that we can run a successful, sustainable, and financially viable venue with an inclusive governance structure. With our engagement from the other respondent and from reading tonight's agenda, it's unclear to me what inclusive model and commercial arrangements are in the other proposal. All I do know is that it doesn't appear to be inclusive of us. It's now more critical than ever that we enhance accessibility to get the best out of our public spaces, as we are seeing sky-high rents and governance structures that lock locals out of spaces within their own cities, not to mention a rising cost of living that is making it harder to access the everyday essentials, let alone our own hobbies and interests. I'm talking about the imminent problem that the council are well aware of: empty buildings, empty shop fronts, and high demand for spaces that we can use to do the things we love. Over the next 10 years, our port city is going to change massively, with big developments and exciting projects all over town. We've seen cities undergo processes of change and development in ways that exclude sections of the local community. The North Freo Bowls Club site has a legacy of being open to all, and that's why we want to earmark it as a flexible and adaptable public space in the long term. We did not foresee the difficulties we would encounter to realise that vision, but it certainly speaks to the challenges faced by locals in this town. We are disappointed that, as elected representatives, you now have to make a choice between two proposals that at one point seemed to be in cohesion with each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I just ask the staff, do they know Karen Statton? Okay. Okay. Yep. Well, you could just tell me which group you're representing. Bolo. Yep. And the other person, could I just find out whether I know Corey is for the Bolo too. I worked that one out. He has what? Sorry. Yeah. Well, perhaps we should bring him in now because then. Oh, okay. Keep going then for a bit longer. Okay. All right. Thank you, Rebecca. We'll go now to Dylan Smith.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Dylan Smith. I was part of a group that started the Fremantle Foundation, and I'm director of the North Fremantle Social Farm. I have over a decade of experience in establishing and operating local community-based not-for-profits, and as a board member of a national membership-based organisation. My current role as WA State Manager for Philanthropy Australia sees me supporting and advising non-profits with effective governance and operations on a weekly basis. So I'd like to talk briefly about the precinct, but also about governance. But like many people here, I've also got a personal connection to the North Fremantle Bowling Club site. In 2008, Julia and I, along with the help of family and friends, held a supper club. We served homemade curries and desserts, ran a raffle, and raised a couple of $1,000 on that basis. It was the first precious dollars towards a new organisation called the Fremantle Foundation. Nearly 15 years later, backed by the energy and generosity of Fremantle people, the Fremantle Foundation has now distributed over $3.5 million to organisations in Fremantle and throughout WA. Regarding the North Fremantle Social Farm, I was also lucky enough to be part of the very successful North Fremantle Social Farm, and after 3 years, I'm stepping down as a board member next month. In 3 years, the North Freo Social Farm has developed a highly efficient, sustainable, and effective membership-based model. It has 200 picking members, 29 social members, 152 people on the waiting list, 3 to 4 volunteer days per week, runs regular workshops and events, donates leftover produce to St Pat's, and has a growing reach. Gardening Australia have just spent 2 days filming, so watch out for that to drop soon with Costa and our very own Josh Byrne. So, in terms of the precinct, as set out in our EOI, we propose to create a precinct management committee based on the very successful North Fremantle Associated Clubs example from just down the road. The committee will oversee the successful integration and collaboration between the North Fremantle Social Farm, the North Freo Bolo, the city, and other emerging stakeholders. The Associated Clubs example is worth highlighting. The investment of the Associated Clubs back into the Gil Fraser Reserve over years is significant and substantial. We can do the same for Gordon Dedman Reserve Precinct. Regarding governance, we'll use our extensive experience to create a membership-based, not-for-profit with volunteer board. Membership and bookings will be affordable and open to all. We have 150 pre-commitments for social membership and aim to emulate West Leederville's success story, which has 1,000 members. The North Freo Bolo has a strong governance approach and simple business model that will lead to maximum access to the precinct and ongoing improvements. For us, it's not just a privilege or an opportunity to manage the site, it's an obligation, one that comes with the accountability of the North Fremantle community, and we stand ready to do so. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Julia Jones.
Is it appropriate if I read a short statement for Karen since she can't make it? I'll try and keep the whole thing under 3 minutes. Yep. Is that okay? So Karen can't come because she's a vet surgeon. She's just been called in for a dog emergency. But she lives on Hebron Street, so she really wanted to have this read out. She says, our kitchen faces the bolo. My lounge room looks onto the bolo, and I walk on the park outside every day with my son and my dog. So I'm part of this local community. This decision will impact my lifestyle every day, so I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak. I'm very worried about the increased traffic on our street, noise and light pollution in the evening, and safety for for the park users. When I spoke to the Bolo group about this, they gave me a considered and respectful response and looked for solutions to these issues. They explained that they would not only look for solutions, but they would pursue them with the council in their proposal and the years ahead as the facility and the precinct took shape. I feel that we would be welcomed into their committee as a representative for Hebron Street without hesitation. At a time when there are increasing awareness and concerns for our mental health, we need opportunities for connection in our local community more than ever. The North Freo Bolo proposal that focuses on fun and friendship to benefit the overall well-being of residents in North Fremantle is one I strongly support. And then my own thoughts as well. So I'm Julia. I'm speaking as a member of the Bowling Club Steering Committee. 1 year ago, North Fremantle residents, including members of our own group, approached the city to review the lease on the bowling club. The petition gathered 100 signatures with very little effort, showing a great desire in our community to activate the club. No one wants the club more open more than the people who walk past every day. We want the club open for everyone and in the long term. But the club is still falling into disrepair, and the North Fremantle community is getting tired. Our key people are tied up with large projects like the new bridge and also the brewery development. We are also aggrieved by the sale of assets by the previous bowling club tenants. These assets were funded and donated by hard-working local residents, some of whom are here tonight. The community does not want this process delayed any further. Delays so far have only led to straw man arguments, division in the community, and drama in the media. We've already demonstrated our ability to collaborate with residents, community organisations, local businesses and corporate partners. And as leaseholders, we will continue to collaborate with key stakeholders and take a holistic approach to the precinct. It's time to respect the umpire's decision and let us get on with the work of opening the club. I urge you to authorise the CEO to commence lease discussions with us as the preferred applicant. And in your deliberations, I ask you to judge us on the strength of our expression of interest, which scored 78% against the selection criteria. Thank you so much all for your time.
Thank you, Julia. Is there a Peter, somebody here, who's to speak on the bolo? You don't wish to speak? No. Oh, okay. Did you wish to speak? Well, no, it's just... Yeah, okay. I think we're right. Okay, so we'll go now to Corey Skidoni. Is he online? No? Sorry? Yep. Corey, can you hear us? Has he got himself muted? Just while they're trying to... just while they're trying to work that out, I've only got one more person for the social club registered to speak, and that's Ross. Was there anyone else that got missed? No. We'll leave you, Ross, for a bit, and we'll do a couple of others of the bolo group. But if there's, I haven't missed anybody, have I? No. No luck. Yep, we'll keep going then. Okay. Simon Firth.
Good evening. I'm here to speak not as a current North Rio resident. I've been a City of Melbourne resident for the last 6 or so years, moving into North Rio later this year. Also a relatively recent arrival from interstate. I'm connected to North Fremantle through the school. I've got children at the school, and I'm also chair of the school board. Not speaking for the board today, just representing myself and the community. Just want to sort of summarise some of the reasons I'm supportive of the bolo team's bid. Starting with the inclusive engagement and consultation process that they've undertaken to understand the location, its potential, and the community's needs and hopes for that site. And that's included reaching out to businesses, residents, organisations in the local area, including the school and the school board. I believe their engagement has been genuine and thorough. The holistic approach that the team have taken to developing their bid, from considering the club's connection to and relationship with the surrounding area, to going beyond that and seeking guidance and mentoring from an established community bowls club in Leederville. I believe they're really setting themselves up to be able to deliver what they say they can. The substantial capacity and experience within the group and also available to the group through that community engagement around precinct planning and design, around governments, around community, I've already said community engagement, philanthropy, venue management. Again, they're really, really doing their homework. They're setting themselves up for success. And the final point is the underlying philosophy which drives that group, which is to create something of perpetual and increasing social value for the whole community. It really is something for the community, by the community. And that's all from me. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Kelly McGiven.
Hi, everyone. I've also got Corey's here. He sent it to me. If I need to read it out, he still can't be heard. But thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. As humans, we build connections through place, through physical attributes, memories, and connections. The notion that a city can be experienced as an arrangement of urban artifacts, a sense of place emerges from the interaction between these artifacts and collective human experiences. Once known as Brucetown after Irishman John Bruce, with local street names John and Johanna Streets bearing these early settler connections, North Fremantle is made up of a series of its own artifacts that combined attribute to this narrative of sense of place. Its unique peninsula setting, Leighton, Dingo Flower, Queen Victoria Strip, the Bowling Club. First approached by the North Fremantle Bolo Committee almost a year ago. Incidentally, it's the only party that I am aware of that reached out to me as a local resident of North Fremantle. The proposed reinvigorated use of the underutilised asset was a welcome prospect. As a family with 2 small children, North Fremantle has many wonderful attributes. However, it's lacking a community hub, a place for families. With a strong sentiment from broad age demographic at the open consultation event, there was an overwhelming sentiment. The Bowling Green, the second oldest in the state, the oldest still in its original location, should be celebrated and remain at the heart of any proposal. A local North Fremantle resident, as most of you will detect from my accent, I cannot profess to having grown up here. Having emigrated to Australia some 12 years ago with my husband, the city of Fremantle was the place we chose to call home. Having moved across the river to North Fremantle just 3 years ago, together with our 2 young daughters, we've been embraced into what I can only describe as a truly nurturing and open-hearted community. When you move or visit a place, to make sense of it, you look at new and established connections. Brucetown is not just a place to buy coffee. Dingo Flower is not just a place that mills grain. And the Bowling Green is not just a place to play bowls. The Bowling Green is the village green. It represents unification where everyone is equal. A place that unites regardless of your ability, who you are, or where you come from. Sustainability at its grassroots is about creating sustainable communities. The North Fremantle Bolo bid is a contemporary business model that reaches out to everyone. In the same heartwarming way, 2 blow-ins from Ireland were welcomed. The North Fremantle Bolo offers the opportunity to create a more vibrant, connected, and deeply rooted in history and context with a diverse and inclusive programme of use that serves both the local and broader surrounding communities. Mayor, elected members, and people of the public, I have no doubt that the North Fremantle Bolo, should they be successful to become the caretakers of this humble yet rich community asset, it will be a place to serve for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like me to read Corey's as well?
Oh,
or if you can get him
perhaps
on.
if it's got anything different to what we've not heard, that might be helpful because we've still got another half dozen people to go.
Okay, it's
Corey's and there's no point in us hearing repetition. You know, we
yes,
do. Yeah.
That's fine. If Corey's is just from a 30-something who believes that it's still playing bowls is still part of something that young people want to do.
Yep.
And yeah, that's basically the content of his speech.
That's useful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Giles Roberts. This son of Tom Roberts, maybe. Jerry McGill. Former councillor for Fremantle.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Jerry McGill. I've lived in Harvest Road, North Fremantle for 48 years, during which time I served 12 years on Fremantle Council and have been a consistent advocate for North Fremantle throughout. In 2005, I was one of a group of North Fremantle citizens who decided to revive the then moribund North Fremantle Bowling Club as a functioning community asset. We were elected to the committee and over the next 5 years transformed the club into a well-managed organisation with extensive community programs. Capital works were undertaken to renew existing and add new infrastructure, including re-equipping the bar and kitchen, sound and lighting for the auditorium, external floodlights, fencing, a shed, a mower and a roller, totalling nearly $300,000, funded from grants from members and fundraisings, plus countless hours of volunteer labour. Exhausted by the 5-year effort, however, we passed the baton to a new committee, who sadly added nothing to our achievements, and in fact, on departing, took with them everything that wasn't fixed and a few things that were. But yet another renewal phase is now underway, with the imminent selection of a new leaseholder. 2 worthy applicants are in the running. The North Fremantle Bolo assessed as the preferred applicant. North Fremantle Bolo team is solidly North Fremantle based and includes some of the 2005 group. They share the vision and aspirations of the earlier group, the difference being they are much better placed and a lot less naive than we were in the skills of their management team. And also in the care they have taken to set out a program, analyse exactly the resources they will need to undertake it. They see taking the community with them as essential, and they have already undertaken extensive community engagement. In summary, I believe they offer a sustainable model. History repeats itself. So Karl Marx said, first is tragedy, then is farce. Here, we sadly have both. It's a tragedy that the club has been left bereft, and it's farcical that it is now a bowling club with no bowls. The bowls that had been bequeathed to the club by departed members. So North Fremantle Bolo will have a job on their hands. So I hope Council gives them every encouragement and allows them to get to work soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Belinda Steele. Oh, sorry, must have got put onto 2 lists. Nathan Phillips.
Good evening, my name is Nathan Phillips. I am the Managing Director of a landscaping company. I've been with the group for some time, just providing them with advice and direction on CapEx management of external areas. But probably the biggest part that attracted me to the group, and I'm a volunteer to the group, the part that I attracted is the sense of community that a bowling club brings is immeasurable. The generation gap between eldest and youngest all playing the same sport is rare these days. Is hugely rare, and it's something often that we miss. The being able to talk between the eldest, skip 2 generations to the youngest is something that's really important. Collaboration is about working together, and from everyone that's spoken so far, the passion about North Fremantle. So I won't reiterate what the group has said, but if you live in North Fremantle, it doesn't mean that you can't be part of the bowling club. So you know, have your say. That's what clubs and social clubs are there for. So thanks.
Thank you. so now I believe the last person is Ross McCallum for the social club.
Good evening. I'm Ross McCallum, committee member of the North Fremantle Social Club. I've been a resident of Fremantle for over 50 years, residing in South Fremantle, Wycombe Valley, and now North Fremantle. In each community that I've lived in, I've been an active volunteer and cooperative community projects. A founder member of the Fremantle Men's Shed, Fern, Fremantle Carnivale, then manager of Fremantle Fibonacci Centre, and a board member of the Flower Nightclub. In each of these endeavours, the spirit of collaboration has been the heart of the success of these organisations, with sometimes interference from narrow focused vested interests leading to their demise. I applaud the City of Fremantle for reaching the conclusion the best way forward was for the future of the North Fremantle Bowling Club is for collaboration between the two groups who were shortlisted and judged to have more or less similar aims for a vibrant future for this vital community asset. There is so much expertise in both teams that the North Fremantle community deserves to benefit from both. I look forward to attending the wide range of activities that will be in time offered to this venue. I'd like to just add that this is on here because of what has since happened. You may feel that we're underrepresented on this night. We were trying to keep things brief. We also have lots of other members here tonight who, in retrospect, perhaps would have liked to have had their say too, but I'm pretty sure you've heard from them before anyway. A lot of them have spoken in the previous meetings, including the meetings we had upstairs. So just know that there are a lot of really good, very professional people that are part of our organisation too. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Ross. That's the end of the public comment phase. Yes?
I registered this morning online.
Oh, what was your name, sorry?
John Gilmore.
I will, never mind. Would you like to speak now? Yeah.
Thank you. My name is John Gilmore. I'm a resident of the city of Subiaco and very happily have a real passion for sustainability. I'm very pleased that my city has become carbon neutral, and also understand that City of Fremantle was probably the first council to become carbon neutral. With the passion and sustainability, I'm not going to talk about the diversity or the types of activities that North Fremantle Bolo might offer. I want to talk about their innovation and their vision for a better outcome for everyone through North Fremantle, through their approach to sustainability. I have 12 years experience designing energy microgrids, renewable energy, community batteries, commercial renewable installations, and virtual power plants. I was asked to contribute to the sustainability plan for the North Fremantle Bowling Club submission. In a three-phased approach, there is a great opportunity to use the Bolo as a hub to generate and share energy via solar and storage, and to be the starting point for developing a virtual community renewables power plant. Phase one would be to cover the Bolo's north-facing roof with solar panels and install a battery. That would meet up to 100% of the energy needs of the Bolo and provide cheaper power to the community garden and possibly the community centre as well. Phase two would be to partner with a 100% renewable energy provider with the capacity to trade energy across the grid and sell excess power to them to generate a revenue stream for the Bolo. Phase three would be to work with the energy provider to roll out solar to the North Fremantle Community School and Childcare Centre and businesses who wish to participate. Excess power can be exported across the grid, sharing renewable energy as a virtual power plant. The consultative process would be run by the North Fremantle Bolo. North Fremantle could become the first city precinct in WA, there are two country ones, to become a virtual renewable energy power plant, delivering cheaper power and a more sustainable future for the residents across the city of Fremantle. I commended the Bolo's submission to you and ask that you vote in support of it.
Thank you. Sorry, the lady up the back, what was your name? She she's on the list? Yeah. Okay. Could you like to speak now?
Hi, my name is Siobhan Blumen, and I have been around and living in North Fremantle since the mid-70s. The North Freo Bowling Club has always been an iconic part of our ever-evolving suburb. I've watched the club transform over time from a sea of white when it was a competitive bowling club to a relaxed community meeting place to now what is unfortunately a neglected, uncared for asset. Together with my husband, we are operators of hospitality businesses in the heart of the North Fremantle village, as well as being residents of North Fremantle. The committee of the North Freo Bolo were the only bid to actively engage with us from the outset of the process. They ensured their model worked together with the existing offerings of the town centre rather than compete, which we really appreciated. The proposed model complements the town centre businesses with an event space that has greater capacity than existing venues and is more suited to casual events. An open space next to a playground, catering for those with young families, which isn't so safe in the high street currently, and affordable hiring options allowing for a myriad of activities, and of course the option of bowling. With the reinstatement of the staircase, the proposed reinstatement of the staircase on the western end of Stirling Highway, it will further improve the connection to the town centre, which sometimes can feel quite isolated from the rest of North Fremantle. The tirelessly hard-working committee of people behind the North Freo Bolo have quietly gone about building grassroots support from those that live and work in North Fremantle. Many of the committee members have time and time again demonstrated their prior commitment to the good of our community, whether it be supporting our primary school, the Magpies, our beloved local football club, the North Freo Social Farm, or consistently campaigning for superior development outcomes for our suburb. With a leadership team so committed to North Freo and to the betterment of our suburb, we strongly urge you all in the committee to appoint the North Freo Bolo as the trusted custodians to rejuvenate this wonderful community asset. We can't wait to see locals and visitors alike once again breathe life into the venue, and as regular users of the club in the past, we look forward to bringing our annual staff party back home. Thank you.
Thank you. That closes the public comment period. What I'll do is we'll just deal with some very small items which are just procedural, and then we'll bring it. The first item on the agenda is for the bowling club, so we'll deal with that in just a moment. We have petitions. We don't have any petitions, I don't believe. Deputations. I don't believe there are any deputations. Confirmation of the minutes. I'll move the minutes of FPOL dated 10th of August 2022, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Number 9, elected member communication. Do we have any? No?
Yes, could I just make a statement, Madam Chair? I'd like to say that with one exception, I know every single person who has spoken tonight on the Bolo, but I think it's important that I also mention that, and I wasn't aware of this, otherwise I would have mentioned it at the declarations of interest. I will declare an impartiality interest because I am on the board of the North Fremantle Primary School with Simon Firth, Peter Blackhall, and Kelly McGiven, who all spoke tonight, and also, of course, Christine Oldmatter, who's the PNC president. So just to make that clear, that I will obviously take part in the debate and vote.
Thank you. So we'll now go to the item itself. I will move the officer's recommendation as per the agenda. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Thompson. So it's open for discussion. Is there any discussion? Councillor Pemberton.
I'm happy to kick it off, particularly noting that this is committee rules, so we get to speak more than once if necessary.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Twice would be plenty, I think, though.
It will, but only if necessary. Look, first and foremost, I want to say both submissions are incredible. Like, they're really good, strong proposals, and realistically, I'd be really happy with either of them going forward. And again, it's a little bit of a shame that we do actually have to choose. We're in a position where we need to choose, which is difficult. I guess in the initial sort of phase, I also just wanted to speak to, I guess, kind of higher level strategic issues that the council has been considering in relation to this and should keep in mind during this debate. And for me, that's where I'm a little bit stuck at the moment. So a few of the people who spoke, particularly from the North Rio Bolo, in terms of people with a very strong connection to the local community and talking about wanting to hold kids' birthday parties and PNC meetings and lots of other kind of community family-oriented events and so on. And I just note that there is the North Rio Community Hall right adjacent to the space that we're talking about leasing. And when we talk about accessible and affordable and that sort of thing, the proposal at the moment, and particularly from the Bolo, is that they will charge $50 per hour for the use of the Bolo. And Space to Co currently has the venue next door available for $17.30 an hour. And I checked the availability, and it's available at least 3 nights a week for the next few months. And big chunks of the day as well. So one of the things that kind of strikes me a little bit in hearing the discussion that has come from the chamber, which I really value, and I'm not discrediting in any kind of way, except what I'm hearing is the local North Fremantle community saying they want a community space to use and for family-friendly activities at an affordable rate. And the thing that really troubles me at this point is the fact that there is one, and it's not fully occupied and used. And so I realised that the spaces are different, the functionalities are different, and that sort of thing. But the main difference at this stage is neither of them have a liquor license at this stage, but one of them could potentially have a bar, and the other one just has a commercial kitchen. And the community hall that currently exists has a playground adjacent to it. So, in terms of having a really great community space that is accessible and available and so on, it really does strike me that in some ways the community is really fortunate. I don't have this sort of thing available to me in my local neighbourhood. And I do think it would be fantastic. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is that the recreational facilities plan that we undertook over a long period of time in the last few years also identified that the city of Fremantle as an entire municipality had an oversupply of bowls clubs at this point. Now, I recognise that the Bolo, while being called a Bolo, is proposing to do other grass-based things, but also there is an emphasis on bowling, and that has been stated in the presentations this evening. And I do worry a little bit about the fact that what we're essentially doing is perpetuating the exact what has been happening prior to that review, ignoring that review, and while there might be a lot of energy and enthusiasm right now, whether or not that is sustained in 5 years' time and so on is another question altogether. So those are kind of two issues that do concern me, and I guess again thinking to strategic issues that we need to keep in mind. Is this intended as a neighbourhood facility for people to kind of walk to and so on, and that services that immediate catchment? Or is it an opportunity to create something different in the city? And I do think that's what we're being asked to consider in this. I do agree that the Bolo has a fantastic proposal with a lot of great expertise and skills and experience behind it. I think there is some really compelling skills and experience from the social club as well. But that is definitely something that is different, and there is definitely probably a slightly higher risk in that. But do we want more of the same, or do we want to try and offer something new? Should we be using our community facilities to make sure that every suburb has a local community centre focused around bowls or whatever, grass of some sort, that is for that neighbourhood centre? Or should we actually try and enable some diversification and different facilities being used for a range of different things that, you know, that might not be exactly the same as what's in Hilton or what's at Freo Park or what's in Mosman Park or the others. So those are the things I'm struggling with. And if the scores and the assessment of from the panel, the recommendations and the analysis that has been done by our staff, which I really greatly value, if it wasn't so close, like really so close, I wouldn't necessarily be so challenged by this. But given that they are like just a hairline in between them, I think we need to think about these strategic issues.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? No? Well, then shall I close the debate, or is somebody going to jump in? Councillor Vucic.
Once again, I'm not going to go over trodden ground. I think both groups have done a fantastic job. I'm going to come from, and I'm going to keep it brief. I'm going to come from another angle, and I think it's an angle that we need to consider. We have about $170,000 to $200,000 to get this building up to scratch, so that you can occupy this building, whichever group gets it. That's my understanding, and please let me know if I've got it wrong. You know, if it's going to be a 5 and 5 year lease, which is a 10-year lease, I see from the recommendations here in the information that we're going to contribute $25,000 to the maintenance. So that comes up to, you know, over a 10-year period, $250,000. All up, in a 10-year period, we could be contributing something like $450,000. Can people hear me? Or, yep, $450,000. Even that amount of money is neither here nor there for me if it's going into a community, and there is a great deal of benefit. However, when I have a look at other community facilities, and I've had quite a bit of interaction with the Hilton Bowling Club last year, and when I have a look at that facility and the amount of money it gets as support from the city, it's nowhere near what we are going to be committing to the North Freo Bowlo Club. So I have to take that on board and make a balancing act, that if we are going to, one or the other group is going to win, you know, their bid's going to be accepted, that when you negotiate the lease framework, that we need to have a template that's going to work for other community clubs as well. We can't have one or two or any number of our community clubs impoverished to some degree because we don't have the money, and we certainly, if you have a look at our 22-23 budget, we aren't exactly flush with funds, that we are prudent in the amount of money that we give to whichever group is going to win this evening, bearing in mind that we have other community sporting clubs. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My apologies, I'm going to actually take a leaf out of Councillor Sullivan's book and give a sort of background, hopefully not as extensive as Councillor Sullivan would have done. But firstly, I want to say that I'm supporting the recommendation from the officers, and I'll address the reasons for, and I will address later the reasons for the referral to FBOL. So I think some of the community members have given a good account of why there is this concern about the bowler, about the bowling club. And for many members of the community, for a long time, it was not operating in the best interest of the local community, difficult to become, or impossible to become a member and to get access for local events. And indeed, these concerns were reflected in Council's discussions about the club over the years. And as Councillor Pemberton said in the last meeting, the issue has been on her agenda for 4 years. In September 2021, there was the petition asking us to put out the bowling club for expressions of interest with a view to maximising community access. In November of that year, this committee endorsed a CEO reference group to progress the EII process and criteria for a possible tenancy for the club. The EII was released, as we know, and 6 submissions were received, which councillors we've all received information on. And it was evaluated by a 4-member officer evaluation panel. So, and I would say at this point that I have absolutely no full confidence in the objective assessment taken by the officers. The North Frio Bolo achieved the highest overall score on the criteria of 78%, but of course the social club was not far behind. So because of the close score between the two EOIs, the CEO reference group asked both groups to present to a second evaluation panel. This panel concluded that after that interview, and this is from the report, that based on the financial capacity, strengths of proposal, and level of due diligence taken, the North Frio Bolo presented as a more favourable option. So in both parts of the evaluations undertaken by officers, the North Frio Bolo EOI were preferred in terms of the endorsed criteria. This recommendation from officers to council was to progress the lease with the North Frio Bolo as the preferred EOI. And this is indeed the recommendation that we see before us tonight. At full council, the recommendation for a referral requesting further information was substantially amended and referred to this committee for further consideration. And the grounds for the referral were potential for a holistic approach to the community hall and bowling club. 2, to include information about all the compliant community proposals received. And 3, an objective assessment of how well each proposal meets the criteria set. I'll address those 3 criteria because those are the reasons for the referral to this committee. On the subject of the holistic approach to the community hall and bowling club precinct, this was, and reflecting on Councillor Pemberton's comments, this was at the kind of more strategic level. However, it is unclear what the council intended with that request, but explicit mention was made in the debate that a further delay might give the 2 shortlisted proponents time to discuss possible cooperation. I believe this discussion may have taken place, and this proposition, while sensible, may have been made difficult, and by what I see as a social club representative at council, and in 2 local publications saying the Bolo EOI was by the rich and for the rich. So if there was any reluctance about collaboration in the Bolo with the social club, as mentioned by Mr. Grenfell, I would suggest that that might be part of the reason. However, the question for this committee is whether additional information has been provided, sufficient additional information has been provided to endorse the recommendation from officers. My view is that we indeed do have sufficient information to make a decision, and I will be supporting the original recommendation from the officers to enter into lease negotiations with the Bolo, and I would urge councillors to vote in that way.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Lorver.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee members and the public, for allowing me to speak on this tonight. Wow, I do not envy my fellow councillors across the room from right now making this decision. As has been widely commented, we really have 2 strong proposals that scored very similarly in a rigorous staff process. And thanks to the staff for going through that process. I'm sure it wasn't easy for you as either. And you were faced with 1 staff recommendation, and maybe that was a flaw in considering what was potentially put before us, that we couldn't, integrate more than 1 proposal. But that's something that me as a council, I'll take going forward in future things, that maybe we can work that into the process where, as a council, we could maybe have that be a potential outcome. But if an integration of the 2 proposals isn't something that comes from this, I would just like to really see, as a council, if there might be another way to facilitate the energy from both of these groups into our city and not have one be a winner or a loser, but have two wins that would greatly benefit our entire city, be that alternate space that might be available, or what that might look like. But again, whatever decision is made by this committee tonight, I don't want to see a winner or loser. I think we have two great sets of proposals. And approving the start of negotiations, I'm in agreement with Councillor Vujic. When that lease comes before council, I'm very shy about potentially $450,000 being committed to whoever wins this lease tonight, or has agreed to go into negotiations. That's a significant sum, and it's not on par with other clubs in the community that I'm aware of. And so, whether it's a template that we use going forward or that, but I think having all our community clubs supported by this council is very, very important. But I think it should also be, if we're supporting one and there is need in other clubs besides the North Fremantle Polo Club, that we consider either increasing the support that we provide others or providing the same amount of support that we do across the board. So going forward, I just wanted to flag that for staff that do enter these negotiations. That's something I'm going to be kind of wary of. So hopefully there's a good, if that is eventuates, that there is a justification for that. So yeah, again, good luck, you guys. I'm excited to see how the vote goes. Thank you.
Thank you. I might just ask, in terms of the cost that we're talking about, my understanding is that we need to spend funds over the next few years to get the whole facility up to a better standard. Perhaps Director of Infrastructure could make a comment.
Thank you, through the chair. So yeah, there's essentially two parts to this. One is an upgrade cost in respect to the facility. It is time. It's needing a little bit of TLC and an upgrade. Predominantly, the costs that we've picked up on are really about modernisation, which you might say is due on any asset at a period in time. So they are costs that sit in our long-term plan programs, and we estimate that there's probably about $200,000 worth of work in respect to toilet facilities, electrical upgrades, those sorts of things where you'd normally anticipate an asset of this age to require. I'd pick up on the maintenance cost. There's a nominal figure of $25,000 a year for maintenance. We spend similar on other facilities as well, so we have budgets across all our portfolios where we spend maintenance funds on buildings as well. So this isn't a special pot. This is just an allocation against that asset as we would with any other.
Thank you. Councillor Kamada.
Thank you, Councillor Archibald. Look, we've got obviously two very comprehensive proposals that have impressed all of us, and given the additional information, I don't see any reason for myself to change my original decision. Having said that, though, once we come to a decision and we have a preferred applicant, I'd be really disappointed if there wasn't some sort of opportunity for the group that wasn't chosen to actually participate and be involved in actually setting up such a fantastic community facility, and the what will be around that in terms of activity. So until we make a decision and allow the preferred applicant to implement their plan, we won't see this potential realised. So in conclusion, I support the officer's recommendation and trust that given the opportunity, the preferred applicant will deliver a product that's considerate to all that are keen to be involved. And in addition, I also agree with Councillor Vujicic's comments in regards to financial support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moughlin.
Excuse me. Thank you, Chair. And I suppose I just want to start by acknowledging that this process has most probably brought out what is great about Fremantle and the ideas and the contribution that people have for their and our community and what they would like to be able to see come of that. So I'd really like to acknowledge and thank both of those submissions that made it to the final selection process, but also acknowledge my fellow elected members, because, yeah, I can see everyone angsting over a decision in regards to this, and it is a difficult one. And it's not like we're just making a decision on a commercial basis where we've got a tender come in to do the lawn mowing around town, which is pretty easy for us to do. This is about our community and members of our community and where we are heading. Just to have a bit of a rehash as well, I voted for the referral to this committee because at the time I did feel we didn't have sufficient information to make a decision, or rather the comparison between the two applicants, and appreciate the additional information that's come through, as well as the efforts that the applicants have then made to respond to the additional questions. Yeah, I suppose I'm disappointed that there hasn't been an opportunity for further formal collaboration at this point in time between the two organisations, and if you like, a new option didn't come out over the last couple of weeks. But in having said that, I do need to put some faith into the work that the city officers have done in assessing the applications, and most probably with a heavy heart, I will be supporting the officers' recommendation, but would like to see the opportunities for collaboration going forward. And I think the idea, and I would like us to most probably have that conversation about the work that the Fremantle Social Club the North Fremantle Social Club have done, and understand how we might be able to support those opportunities going forward. I just want to pick up as well on the issue of the lease, and if we do request the CEO to go and work on that lease, we do have a program in place where we are working with other sporting and recreational and social clubs in Fremantle to get leases in place for those organisations, and those organisations haven't had leases in place for some period of time, and that has been, if you like, to the detriment of their ability to grow and seek other sources of funding. So when we do go forward with a lease, acknowledging that this asset is sitting there empty at the moment and we would like to get it utilised by the community as soon as possible, I would like us to look at how we are managing the other lease processes, and make sure that we are completing that equitably, and getting that process completed. And similarly, and I acknowledge the comment of the director in regards to maintenance and the like, would want us to make sure that we are stacking up like for like against other clubs within the city.
Thank you. The Mayor?
I'll start with the question of the sort of financials and the need for contribution. I mean, I think what we see across all of our clubs is that when you have a strong and viable club, they come to us with robust proposals for how we can maintain and deal with their assets. So Hilton Park Bowling Club, for example, successful in securing funding for artificial turf. We contribute to that. You know, they put together a plan, they execute, we contribute. So I do feel like the first important step is getting a club in there operating that we can deal with, so that, you know, we can go in there and fix stuff up, but actually fixing stuff up with the users in mind, and the users' collaboration and often contribution is a way more effective way of doing it. I think, you know, it's likely that the officer's recommendation, you know, won't foreshadow is you know, going to stand up tonight. So I guess my message is just twofold. One is to North Freo Social Club. I think your energy and efforts is bigger than a venue. I think it is. It's something not to be lost at this point in time. And I think we have heard loud and clear that there's the need for more of these types of spaces that can be activated by people like you, people who, you know, by you. Our community does, you know, get squeezed out by various different,
whether they're commercial or other interests. And I think it's something that is a real challenge for council, but one we should step up to accepting. North Rio Bolo, your energy and effort is local, and you want to put it into something very local. There's no other place you would do this. But as someone who's no longer a North Fremantle resident, I do completely trust that you will open your arms to me and to all of the other people who don't live in North Rio, but who want to visit and who want to get involved and who want to program events and do things with you in collaboration. So thanks everyone for your energy and efforts coming along tonight, and for the people who've done some incredible work on submissions. I think we're always blown away by the talent in the Fremantle community, particularly when it manifests in this kind of, sadly competition, but this calibre of decision making. So thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, no one wants to speak twice. Very good. Okay, then I'll close the debate. I'll just be very brief. I think just to touch on a couple of the issues, comments made. I couldn't compare this to Hilton. I do agree with Councillor Vucic that we do have to make sure we have equitable expenditure across the city, and I think we've all agreed that it is time. In fact, we've all stated this in the last budget round, to start paying attention to the suburbs again, and I see the opportunity here to get the North Fremantle Bowling Club back into action as a part of that. So this is sort of the first cab off the rank, and I'm very sure we'll all start looking at the other community facilities that exist into the future. So I'm quite happy to approve this one tonight to get that process rolling along. I think too that in my mind, the Bolo group did come up with a project that very much met the criteria that we set back in February 22, and for that reason, I agreed with the officer's recommendation. I do think that it did fit those criteria, and one part of the criteria were particularly that the use is complementary to surrounding sites such as the community hall, community farm and playground, and also pays attention to, but that little bit is missed out, the impact on the surrounding residents is minimal. So overall, I read all the documentation, and I did agree with the officer's recommendation. That said, like my colleagues here, I very much appreciated the two applications. I think they were both extremely well thought out and presented applications. And to my mind, the social club is a project that does need a home. I think it would be fantastic to see, some exploration of what might be able to be achieved to have that happen. Because there's one thing that I think, in a way, we don't have at the moment is a group where music and poetry and all these other things can really flourish. So I'd like us to be able to have a look at that at some point if we can do that. So just that's all I wish to say. So all those in favour of the recommendation as presented by the officers. Those against? Councillor Pemberton's against. That's fine. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming along and making the comments, and we do appreciate the efforts that you've put into this. You're very welcome to stay for the rest of the agenda, but if you would like to stay, then please do. It'd be great. It's a bit like the Flyby nightclub. All right, well, we might reconvene. Yep. Sorry? My goodness. Oh. Okay. We will now move on to the discussion about a bore. A water bore. So I'll move the officer's recommendation, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Is there any discussion on this item? All those in favour? Did you wish to discuss this, Councillor Motley?
I just wanted to ask a
you've
question.
got to be quick.
Yeah, I was just... All right. Yeah, just very quickly, I just wanted to have a question in regards to one of the options that was considered around turning the Pioneer Park into a low water use facility or garden. There was no cost that was presented for that. It'd be good just to understand a ballpark as to if that was turned to a low water use park, what that cost indicatively would be.
Then you'd have heaps of cost in lighting and CCTV because you wouldn't be CDEP.
No, yep, just asking the question. At least, or a minimum number, yeah, would be good.
Should we get the manager of parks to make a comment, please? Yeah.
Thank you, through the chair. We'd need to take that away and do a piece of work on that to understand it, I suppose, in more detail, and it would be very dependent on what the material surfaces and finishes and everything like that would look like. So, yeah, we could take that away and do a further piece of work if you'd like. No, I suppose what I'm just wondering, or rather, maybe I should frame the question differently. To change the park to that kind of use would cost more. My question is, would that cost more than what the installation of the bore would be? Yeah, we need to do a piece of work on that to understand that, but there would be quite a substantial cost to convert it. Yeah, depending on obviously how you finished it off. Yep, thank you. And can I just then make a comment? Yeah, I suppose, you know, we did have a conversation in regards to the bore in general, and that it is a significant cost, and I fully support us replacing the bore. I would, I suppose, put 2 points on that. One is for us to be able to, you know, maximise the utilisation of $250,000 literally going into the ground, so that we are getting the best use out of that, and at the same time, the associated infrastructure being, you know, pumps and pipe work and other bits and pieces. I would like to think that we would consider the job in one rather than finding ourselves later down the track with a failed pump or something similar.
Okay, thank you. No further discussion? All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. I'll just go through the agenda because it's very short. The next item is FPOL 22093, submission on the Fremantle. Sorry? Sorry? Oh, submission on Fremantle Harbour's master plan. I will move the officer's recommendation, but in doing so, I'll acknowledge that Councillor Kamada does have a minor amendment, which I have read and I consider to be minor, but I will leave that for him to present to the meeting. So the moving of the officer's recommendation, seconded by Councillor Pemberton. Is there any discussion? Councillor Kamada.
Yeah, thank you very much. Look, this is an issue, I suppose, that's close to my heart. Having worked and played and you know, spent a lot of hours in the fishing boat harbour and watched it change over the years since I was a little kid. So it goes without saying that I support sensible development of the fishing boat harbour. And if we get this project right, I believe it'll deliver a historical, respectful, vibrant seaside environment that'll be world class. It also gives us the opportunity to rectify some of the mistakes in the past. One of those that I think was happened some years ago around the America's Cup time was when they did build the boat lifters in the position that they did. I think it interfered with the ambience of the harbour the way that I saw it in the past, and there'll be an opportunity to improve that part of the harbour down the track. And I know I'm probably going to do a bit of an Andrew Sullivan for a moment, but it'll lead me to my reasons for the slight extra point that I'd like to add the amendment. Yeah, and I think it'll improve linkages and enhance the historical and cultural value with ideas like a maritime heritage trail that would link the Victoria Quay to Fishing Boat Harbour. But most importantly, I think we need to emphasise that we need to focus on what's best for Fishing Boat Harbour and basically for the fishing boats and that made the harbour what it is today, and how they can be linked with the community and tourism and hospitality. It's important that we capture the deep culture and history of the harbour, and that has resonated with generations of West Australians, and take us into a new chapter that future generations, will proudly identify with. Finally, I think it's critical now that we have entered the feedback review phase, that priorities and improvements to the plan that have been identified are recognised and acted upon. And I know this is something that it's a 40-year plan or so. It's something that's going to take a long time to fine-tune. So priorities are really important. As such, I'd like to propose a minor amendment to the officer's recommendation that acknowledges and considers the rich cultural and historical value of the harbour through all phases from planning to implementation. Thank you.
Is seconded by the Mayor. All those in favour of the amendment? Was there any debate on the amendment? Sorry. Yes. No? All those in favour? Did anybody wish to discuss it? No. All those in favour of the amendment? The amendment is carried. Is there any further discussion on the item? Councillor Pemberton.
Gosh, you just made me think maybe I needed to disclose that I still work for the Maritime Museum too and Shipwreck Gallery. It's like, yes, maritime kind of history. I love it too, so I'm glad you put that in. Thank you. I wanted to just raise a couple of quick things that sort of are in here, but I want to make sure there's emphasis. So I haven't put forward a proposal for an amendment as such, because I know this is going to full council, and it's probably not necessary to put it in the council's motion at this stage, perhaps, but I really hope that it's captured for the submission itself. And so the first thing was around, and it is kind of mentioned in various ways in officer's comment on page 28. The third dot point of 4 on that bottom half of the page there talks about the encouraging the future redevelopment and economic growth through diversifying land use. I think that's a really, really important aspect for this, and it's something that I've certainly talked about in the discussions we've had with DOT and at the workshops and things that have happened even for the boatlifters site, which is what we don't want to do is have this kind of precinct cannibalise the CBD. You know, we've got this real threat, I think, to the city, and I think we've seen what a disaster that can lead to with what's been going on in Subiaco in recent times, where, you know, there's development precincts that happen on the fringe of the CBD, and the CBD gets gutted and becomes desolate. And I think it's really, really important that we strongly advocate that that not happen. And I think the way of doing that is embracing the heritage and the traditional uses and making sure that we are putting different uses in there, not just duplicating, not just another cappuccino strip and some more retail or whatever. So I think that needs to be a really strong point that the city is making. Just with regard to the boat lifters, I was a little bit confused because there was the specific feedback about the boat lifters on the following page on 29. But my understanding is the draft proposal has a proposed site, and we haven't actually commented on what we think of that proposed site. So it sort of acknowledges, as Councillor Kamara has said, you know, that the current site is not ideal, but do we support where they're currently proposing it to go? And my understanding is that yes, we think that generally that is good, and maybe we need to state that. The other thing that I wanted to make sure was captured was the alternative transport nodes, but it is the kind of section that it might fall under. But specifically, it needs to relate to the PSP, the Principal Shared Path, the cycle network, and the fact that currently it runs down along the train line, and that it's a really, really important route, not only for kind of people wanting to get in and out of Fremantle from various points, but even if you're just wanting to go north to south, like if you want to miss the CBD and head south, we actually need that connectivity to continue. So we don't want this plan to undermine that. We don't want them to turn it into a sort of shared street, slow speed environment all the way through, unless there's sort of an alternative thing. You're going to end up creating conflict zones and so on. And I think that what we need to advocate for strongly is you know, that north-south connection for the PSP route. And if this is not the spot for it, that's fine, but where does it go? And I can't think of a better place yet, but I'm happy to put my mind to it if it's necessary. So yeah, just around making sure that we retain the integrity of the principal shared path, and that it goes through that whole precinct, because also it's really, really helpful for people coming up from the South Beach area and so on. You know, we know the shoreline development is going to be huge. But, you know, if we anticipate people to use the road network alone for that, then Hampton Road's going to be so much worse than it is now. So we need to make sure that that is an option for people to take that's attractive and efficient and safe.
Thank you. I might just ask the Acting Director of Planning to make a comment, because I did ask earlier about, you know, where this planning process is at, and it was interesting what you did say to me, and it might be worth mentioning it to the group.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The master plan exercise doesn't have any statutory weight. It's really a position statement from the Department of Transport, who manage the harbours, about what their intent is going into the next 40 years, as Councillor Kamara mentioned. The current planning framework, it's an MRS reserve, so any proposals, if they are significant, they would go through the JDAP process, but in terms of an actual planning framework that talks about building heights, setbacks, design, there really isn't that much that any decision maker could base it on. So it really is, it would be leaning on things like these strategic kind of documents, but it is still very up in the air about exactly what Department of Transport is thinking in terms of built form and that kind of thing. This really is just a blob on a map type exercise and a visioning of the workshops that have been done in the past. So I think there's still a fair amount of work to be done yet, and the report that's in front of you tonight is really stating that, in saying that good start, but lots more detail to be worked through.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Oh, Councillor Lorga. Sorry, I didn't.
Oh, no, that's all right. Thank you, Chair. And just a comment, flag, foreshadow a potential amendment when this comes to council, and it would be under Part 6, I think, of the staff comments, and I think you did an excellent job of capturing a lot of really good detail in quite a diverse and general planning kind of way, and in keeping Fremantle, this place what it is. But it would have to do with some of the briefings that we've had in relation to the super yacht berths that are proposed for this site. And I just think that having space reserved for people who own boats then earn more than all of us in this room make in our entire lifetimes is a bit of a waste of space. And I'd like to see that those proposed areas are also publicly activated. So if someone comes in with a very large boat, maybe they just have to rent out 2 berths because it's too big to fit into 1 or 3 or whatever it is. But to have specific space dedicated to privately owned, very large vessels, to me just seems like not the best activation. So if we could potentially have something in here that ensures that those places are also activated in other ways, that would be a really good thing, or at least acknowledges the council's preference if the council wishes it to go that way. that they're activated. Otherwise, that would be great. So just kind of foreshadowing that potential amendment when it comes before council. Thank you.
I think it's just worth mentioning with super yachts. I don't think anyone gets excited about the idea of, private parking for very wealthy yacht owners. But what we do get excited about, and I think why you'll see that we've put some energy and effort into super yachts, is the economic development that occurs from having them in your precinct. So it's very much about the expenditure that they might spend in local shops stocking their boat and all of that kind of stuff. So I hear where you're coming from, but you might see that there is some effort into super yachts, both from us, from the Chamber of Commerce, from the state government, and it really is about the economic flow and benefit, not about the particular presence of those boats and having spaces for them reserved. It's jobs and economic development.
Councillor Pemberton.
Just on that, and I agree with sort of some of the concerns. I really, really struggle with this one, particularly how it aligns with our One Planet principles, because the idea of having a fully stocked super yacht available 24/7 in case some billionaire decides to go somewhere is a great economic opportunity. And what is it doing to our planet?
Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favour of the motion? As amended, yes, thank you. Well, that is unanimous, thank you. We now move on to Griffiths Park, which is item 4, Griffiths Park upgrade. I'll move the motion as written in the document, seconded by Councillor Mofflin. In moving it, I do want to make some comments, but I'm very happy to wait until the end of the conversation. I can. All right. Well, then maybe I'll start. If I need to speak twice, I will. No, I won't need to. But I guess the thing I picked up in this, having recently been through a Stevens Reserve Virginia Ryan discussion, which we have yet to see the results of, is that we will have increasing clash between people taking small children to parks and people using the parks for dog exercise. This is a designated dog exercise area already, and it still has an area in the plan designated for dog exercise. I think it's going to be very difficult to restrict the exercising of dogs in that specific area. But the other thing that I think is happening at the moment is that we're getting increased numbers of people having dogs that need exercising, and schools are getting more nervous about hosting dogs in their playgrounds with reasonable reason. And the reason people go to those is because they're fenced off, and Stevens Reserve is a fenced off area, and they're the go-to places for many dog people for obvious reasons. So I just wanted to flag, and I have spoken to the Director of Infrastructure and also to the Manager of Parks, that I think we need to have a discussion in the council about how we're going to manage this problem, because the problem exists not just at Stevens Reserve, and I'm sure it'll come up at Griffiths Park once new infrastructure goes in and there are increased pet users coming to that park. It exists also in North Fremantle and other places. So I did have a discussion with the Manager of Parks, and he agreed. I could say you did agree with me. Put you on the spot. That we do need to have that discussion as a council, I think, in how we manage the future of dog off-lead parks, and we may need to start putting some money into the budget to do some fencing. But otherwise, I am happy to support this recommendation. I just wanted to flag that, but I think we'll have to rethink a little bit more to go with this. Councillor Mofflin.
Thank you. Yeah, and I agree entirely that we need to have a look at how we're managing dog off-lead areas, but acknowledging that it's about that conflict and how we manage those green spaces and the use of them in general. If we look at Griffiths Park as an example, it is very much that local walking park for people within that few hundred metres to be able to go and play in that space. And I think what's been proposed, and I'm really supportive of the work that the officers have done in this regard, maintains that play space, but knowing that we do have a challenge with the number of dogs and the likely increase in appeal of this space when it's upgraded. Seeing the work that has been done at Dick Lawrence, that you go past there at any point in time when after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the playground that was replaced there is now chockers with kids, whereas before it was an empty plastic shell. And now we see greater utilisation. And of course, there are Dick Lawrence is a dog off lead area, except when sporting events are on. And we're certainly going to, I suspect, see some of those issues through there as well. And I think Councillor Lorver may speak to some of this this evening or at council, but the use of, as you alluded to, Chair, primary school and school oval spaces, which are appealing both from a fenced perspective, but also when one person goes, then you get someone else, 2, 3, and you get that great multiplication effect. And it's almost like when you have the doubling, and I think it's that old kind of thing that I learnt in science, when you think, oh, something's not actually growing that quickly, but it's doubling all the time, and then all of a sudden your lake is covered in algae because you didn't realise how quickly it was growing. But I think we're experiencing similar kind of elements in regards to dog use in various spaces at the moment, and both family, kid play areas and dog use are valid uses. We just need to make sure that we've got them managed accordingly.
Yeah. Did the manager of Parks wish to say anything about this? No?
Thank you, through the chair. I suppose the only point to add would be we do have placeholders in the financial plan for starting to implement some of these, and I suppose the next step is to develop up a program which could sit behind it with some options and spaces to look at and bring that back to council for discussion and further consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Lorver?
Yeah, this is another item I came for tonight, and thank you all for indulging me, for letting me speak so much during your committee. I think Councillor Moffat might have been thinking about, if you start the beginning of a month with a penny and you double it each day, by the end of the month you have over $1 million. That's the power of doubling things each go, and it is quite intensive. This park is much beloved by the community around it. It is currently the entire park is an off-lead dog exercise area, and it's one that is used by several people, but it's not used as frequently as it will soon to be. And I would think that maybe we could have, especially because, well, I'll get to the reasons aside, but the school oval, the Hilton Primary School, at any given time when there are dogs allowed there, you might see 3 dozen dogs, but there might be close to over 100 different dogs. Most of them, maybe 75%, live in the neighborhood. That currently that school oval provides a very much needed pressure relief valve on this park. And when this park went out for consultation, that was an accepted thing in the community. It's now been almost a year, maybe just about over a year before that consultation occurred. And that school oval pretty much were on notice that it's going to be closed off to dogs. So we need to approach the planning to this park, this off-lead dog exercise area that currently exists, I think with that in mind. And the planning that was done on this, and the staff did a really good job of consultation. They even went out and spoke to multiple preschool and primary school classes about what they wanted to see happen on this particular site. But me personally, when I went to the open day at the park and I brought up the issue of, off-lead dog area, personally, I was told that that was out of scope and it was just consultation about the playground. And so I'm not, that's been reiterated to me by a few other people, so I'm not entirely sure that the planning for this has actually captured the need for the community for that space. And certainly what's been provided on the concept plan, I'm sure we're not going to limit it just to part 6 that's on there, the little tiny area for dogs exercising, but it speaks to me that was very much not a great weight of consideration. The other thing that I'm concerned about this is the increase in the budget. It's going over 175% more than what was allocated just at the end of July. Now, this may sound like I'm speaking against my own neighborhood, but I think we're going to run into a lot of challenges this coming year with things costing more than they did when we just approved them, what, 6 weeks ago? And maybe there might be, instead of taking away from other projects like the Fremantle Education Center or other things, we could look at scaling some of this project back to bring it back in line with what was the original intended budget. There are a few things that we maybe don't need to do everything that's on here right away and bring it back in line, and we can still fund the other important projects that are in the budget. But I would like to see this come before council not as a yes/no decision, but as something that could be potentially flexible, and just leave room maybe for resubmitting a tender or having the current tender exclude some items or something. So that way it's not just a yes or no and then we got to start over from the beginning. If that's possible, that would be greatly appreciated. Give us a few weeks to try to work on some potential alternate solutions. But, you know, this, as it stands, I really fear that this potentially, as is before you guys right now, it's spending a lot more money, 175% more than what was approved, to potentially just cause a problem that doesn't exist right now because the school oval is still there. But I'm telling you, it will be coming very soon. So hopefully we can get in front of this and just make it work for everybody, families and dog owners and families that have dogs. Thank you.
Could I just ask staff, do we need an amendment to get, or will you just take it on board that you'll bring some alternate numbers through?
I've made a note of it. We can bring an option to the council meeting.
Okay. Councillor Thompson?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm surprised at where the dog conversation came from because this is either acceptance or rejection of a tender. So I listened with interest and particularly listened with interest to Councillor Wilver's concerns once it got off the dog issue. And I think those concerns are some that have made me rethink approving this at the moment, and so I will be voting against it. I would also just have a question on page, it refers to, so normally with something like this, there's a WA preferred supplier program. It was not used for this tender as officers wanted to test the broader full stop. So given that the WALGA preferred supplier program actually reaches a much larger supplier, range of suppliers than anything that we could do individually, I wonder what the justification was for not, at the very least, trying out the WALGA preferred supplier program, because that has been, over the years, has been shown to provide significant cost savings to the process of getting tenders.
Did any officers want to speak on the issue of the WALGA process?
Thank you, through the chair. I'd probably need to take that on notice and go back to the team and get the exact detail behind it. This project was a bit unique in that it had a big irrigation. It was a combination of, I suppose, three parts of our renewal program. One of them was a drainage and civil project in converting that sump. One was a playground renewal, and one was an irrigation renewal. And so there was potentially three head contractors, type of head contractors who could lead a project like this. So I'll just confirm that, but I believe it was to be able to allow those consortiums to best put together the project team that they thought would be the most competitive.
So one option would have been to actually have three tenders for the three different options. Is that correct?
No, we'd expect if you won tender, there's different head contractors may choose to submit on it. It may get led by a landscape company, it may get led by a civil company, or more less likely it could be an irrigation-led company.
Could I just clarify something? That you asked the question why the dog issue came up tonight. The reason I raised it is that there wasn't a part of the process where the plan came to the council, and so when I looked at the plan, which is what we tended on, and read the last report, the second stage of public consultation, I kind of felt, having the experience also of Stevens Reserve and Virginia Ryan parks, that that we hadn't really addressed the dog issue in the plan, but there hasn't been an opportunity for us to discuss that issue because the plan never came to council. So I've raised it here just so that we can pick that up in the process.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Councillor Pemberton, then Councillor Vucic.
Yeah, look, all really interesting issues that are raised. And I guess at first I was sort of just reading this on face value. So I appreciate the kind of intel and input that people have contributed through their engagement and thinking about this. I do think that perhaps a phased approach is a sensible one, particularly if the community has not been kind of screaming for this, if it's not something that's an urgent need, because we know we've got lots of urgent needs in the city. The other thing that it sort of strikes me though, and in some ways it does relate to the dog issue, but also more broadly, so, you know, we've looked at Davies Park in White Gum Valley as a potential alternative, you know, with the Stevens Reserve pressures and all of that sort of stuff. And I know the local community there has long called for improvements in that park, but at the moment, you know, it's not irrigated, it's got lots of weeds through it. It is used, but it's not very usable. And I do think there would be tremendous value if we did look at actually some kind of phased sort of scheduling of upgrading these kind of spaces that are potentially usable, that just need a little bit of attention and money. And I do realise they would be ongoing operational costs once established, which is another issue altogether. But again, to create those kind of walkable green spaces, and I do think there needs to be some consideration for dog exercise areas, because I think it's also really important for us to factor in that when people can't walk their dog off lead, can't exercise their dog, then instead we get dog aggression issues, we get dogs barking consistently with noise complaints and all these other kind of things. So if we just kind of go, oh well, dogs don't matter, that they will lead to lots of other problems in our community, and that the council will need to deal with. So I do think it's worth considering, absolutely. And on that note, I will also raise something that I've previously raised in discussions around dog issues and parks and so on, which is that one thing that perhaps we need to look at in how we address this is also dog training, dog exercise, like dog education. Like the part of the problem is that people don't know what they need to do in order to meet their dog's needs, and they don't know how to train and control their dog so that they are safe, and then, you know, so that you do end up with conflicts when they come into contact with children or other users in parks and so on. And I think if we had a more proactive approach about that, we might actually have a little bit less of the conflict and problems that we do have in our community around dogs and so on. With this in particular, I'm kind of interested in what Councillor Thompson has said, and do wonder, you know, if we were to go through the preferred supplier route, is there any chance or possibility of this coming in at a slightly lower budget, or is that just wishful thinking because it's probably just going to be the same? I think given that this is a council decision, and we're looking at phasing, it would be really interesting to kind of get some intel on that, like whether or not that's worth looking at, given this is so much more significantly over budget. But in general, I support it, and I do think that improving the functionality of the you know, green spaces that we have available to us is a really good thing. And I guess it also kind of meets our urban forest / greening Fremantle strategy stuff as well, which is a really good thing.
Thank you. Councillor Bucci.
Thank you. Once again, I think the Griffiths Park upgrade is necessary. It's a community park. I ditto Councillor Lorber's concerns about some of the consultation and the dog aspect of it. I also ditto his concerns about the budget. It's called the multiplier effect. If you push this year's spending that you didn't plan for into next year's spending, it just becomes a multiplier effect till you get to the point where you lose touch of what your initial budget was all about. We need to have discipline, and I can't support $177,000 odd dollars and think it's okay because it's coming out of two items, and we're just putting them back into the next financial year. We're actually spending part of that now. I don't think it's sustainable, and I can't support it as it is. Thank you.
Now move to the Mayor.
Can I ask a question before I make a statement? The LCRI grant that's referred to on page 35, can somebody tell me what that grant is and what we need to do to be able to use that grant? Like, when do we need to, whatever the word is, requisition it?
It's the local roads community infrastructure grant. It's a federally funded grant. There's been numerous tranches of it. I'd have to check the acquittal requirements exactly around this one. So I'd have to come back to you with that information. But it's an ongoing program, and we have requested extensions on this one, and it's okay at the moment.
Okay, so by council, it would be really good to understand if there is an acquittal requirement and if we are at risk of losing that funding if we don't go ahead, and if the funding is tied to the project as a whole or to specific phases of the project. I don't know which end of this to start at. I've got to say, in 2022, if we think that everything is going to come in on tender at the same as what we budgeted for it, I think we are dreaming. So we may not be able to do anything at all this year if we take the approach of saying, oh dear, the tenders have come in and it's over budget. It is going to be a very iterative year in terms of working out what we can do this year and what will need to get pushed into next year. And, I don't think there's any way of avoiding that. I don't know whether phasing is going to make it cost more or less. Less or more, because I suspect you're getting some synergies between having different contractors working on site, only mobilising once, etc. So I think we should just be cautious, or at least understand the implications of a phasing decision as to what that might mean for the overall cost of the project. And I don't know if we're able to, but it'd be good to engage with the preferred or all the shortlisted contractors to say to them, if this were phased, would you expect the overall cost to be more or less? I do want to point out the strategic relevance of why are we upgrading Griffiths Park, because we do have a strategy around greening our city. We do have a strategy around walkable parks, and part of our ability to do density, and in Hilton this is absolutely a live issue, is that we provide public open space that provides people with the amenity that they don't necessarily anymore have in their backyard because they have a house in their backyard, or sometimes two. So for people with kids, it is absolutely critical, and for people who want to go out and be part of their community, that we have parks that accommodate what backyards no longer can, which is why we have said we need to have parks within walking distance of certain houses. And if you look at the side of Hilton to the east of Colic Street, there's 0 parks. So that entire catchment uses Griffiths Park and the other parks within walking distance for all of their needs. Dog ownership has increased. I think that's fair to say. I think when you get a dog, you need to do your due diligence on where you're going to walk it. The other thing around community demand, there is absolutely community demand for this. This is not it's been run down for years. I think that people would voluntarily almost start upgrading this park to use it with their kids. Their school is shut off after hours, so there is less ability within the school site to access that. And the risk is that the oval and the play equipment there also could be shut off from kids as well as dogs after hours, because I don't know how you distinguish and let one in and not the other. The playground renewal program has told us that this playground needs to be renewed, so we do the asset due diligence, we look at the asset life, if you like, and this was one, I believe, that came up on the list as saying this playground is too old and it needs to be renewed. So deferring it is not really a great plan. Furthermore, there's a process around this. You know, we said we were going to do it. We went to the community and asked them what they wanted to see. We got huge turnout down at the park to talk about what people wanted to see. I don't think anyone's saying the whole thing doesn't, you know, it's going to ban dogs. It's certainly not that. But there was a lot of input from the community. So I'm just a little bit just disconcerted by the idea that when this finally goes to tender, having gone through a process of having to reduce scope in order to bring it even within cooee of something that we can afford, that we then say, oh, well, hang on, let's go back to the drawing board. And it just, you know, I don't know how we stand in front of the community and say, oh, yeah, we got that far. And then we said, oh, it's all a bit too hard. And you know, we're going to think about it for another year or so. So I'm just a little bit perturbed by all of that. I mean, it is a council decision, and I mean, certainly we can look at those things, but I just don't like raising community expectations and then not being able to deliver when the majority of the program is, you know, well, has been funded by a grant to date. So, you know, we've got to acquit that. So, dog park, yeah, totally. And I think as a council, the other thing, we've got to operate at a strategic level. We do not design parks as elected members. Like, that is well and truly over the line of the Local Government Act. What we can do is request officers to look at options for a dog park, and that's probably what we need to do. And I suspect it needs to be a fenced dog park because all of the issues are around where people are being excluded from fenced areas that they're using as dog parks. Enough from me.
Councillor Moughlin.
Yeah, I'm going to take my committee privilege and speak again. Just because there were a number of points that were raised, I just want to pick up on, and the Mayor spoke to them as well, but to point out that this is a renewal program. It's a program which we have asked staff to put in place to renew assets across the city, and there was a process to prioritise and plan to do those. And I have had many conversations since I've been an elected member about Griffiths Park being part of that renewal program. And what we are renewing is that play space. We aren't renewing the irrigation through that park. We're not changing the use of the park. It is remaining the same. And yeah, there are some strategic decisions to make about how we use it, but we are upgrading an asset which is valued and will be more valued by the community. And just to touch on the budget aspect, if we read the report that has been provided by officers, there are two projects there that are not actually taking place because of the first one hasn't been successful obtaining grant funding, so we're taking that money. I'm not sure if elected members would prefer us to just leave money there and not do a project. And the second one is not forecast to commence until the next financial year. So we're not actually borrowing or stealing money from future years. It's just projects that aren't happening this year that we're going to use the money for a much needed project for an asset that's most probably 25, 30 years old and needs replacement.
Councillor Vucic, did you wish to speak again?
Oh, I just want to make a correction on Councillor Pisharding. As twice you've talked about that we're dreaming when I refer to budget adjustments. I'm not dreaming, I'm actually in reality. Perhaps you're the one who's having the dream, because this type of budget adjustments will end in tears for some projects, either this year or next year or the year after, simply because we're not replacing that income adequately enough. This is not about the merits of upgrading Griffiths Park.
Could we just carry on, please? Because it is... No. Well, I mean, a solution can be discussed between now and the council meeting, if there is one. Yep. Councillor Lorver, you wish to speak twice tonight too? This is really...
I think this is my fourth time, and thank you for the indulgence. I just wanted to be really clear. I was just asking to not have this be a yes or no decision at council, that if there is a potential alternate way to move this forward, that is up for consideration. This park does need renewal. It does need new play equipment. It does need a lot of things. But I think that if there is a way to deliver a good renewal to this park, maybe bring the budget down a little bit, it will help everything across the city of full bore. And I think that having a little bit of time to actually go through that would be just fine. So that was my only request. I'm not suggesting that we don't renew this park. I didn't want that to give that impression to anyone. Thank you.
I'll just invite the Director of Infrastructure to make a comment.
It's my first comment through the chair. I just thought it was worth pointing out that when this first came through for evaluation, I was really quite pleased with what the team had done. We've tried really hard over the last 3 years to start combining resources and thinking more holistically about how we approach projects. There's 3 projects here. We haven't gone out in isolation dealing with 3 separate projects, and we will spend more money doing 3 different projects at 3 different times. So what we've got now is a new innovative approach where we've combined the projects, we've consulted better, we've been more proactive, we've really thought innovatively about how we deliver this. I was really pleased with what came out and the proposal that we've got on the table. So I applaud what the team have done in terms of moving forward, and I'll be advocating that we do more of this. By all means, we'll look at costs and how we can split costs, but essentially what you're going to do is break the project back up, deliver it in different phases, and pay on costs for each time you mobilise a different contractor. The other thing really for me really as well is that in terms of moving forward, the other projects were there, but they weren't really viable. So if you look at the education centre project that was there, if we'd have actually progressed with that, we would have left the education centre in a worse position because we're just doing half a job. Essentially, we were decommissioning and removing all the air conditioning and leaving them there with nothing for another 12 months before we came back to do the second phase of the works, which was to install new air conditioning. So in actuality, we're not just postponing that, we're going to do that in one phase, and again, gain benefits from dealing with the education centre air conditioning as one whole job rather than doing it in 2 pieces, not getting best value for money and leaving some of our stakeholders in a sub-optimal position. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Just to close, I would say that I do very much support the plan, and I agree with the comments being made about the design work. I think it's going to be a great outcome for the community there. The concern about the dog issue is really just because this was also highlighted in the stage 2 public community consultation report, where people who obviously were dog owners were saying they were concerned about the clash between the users and that sort of thing. But as I said, I think it's a universal issue and it's something we need to look at across the city. So it's not something to suddenly stop and attend to here. I just want to make those 2 comments. So if there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour as put, and then we can deal with changes between now and the council. Those against, Councillor Thompson and Councillor Vucic. Otherwise, it's carried. Thank you. We now go on to motions of which previous notice has been given. I believe there are none. Urgent business, I don't believe there is any. Late items, there are none. No confidential business. Just before I close the meeting, there are 2 things I just wanted to raise. One is a comment I just wanted to make about standing orders, just because I want to impress Councillor Thompson before he leaves the room. The issue of elected member communication, which Councillor Thompson used tonight, is only there under standing orders to ask questions or make personal explanation on matters not included on the agenda. So if it is included on the agenda, you need to deal with it when the item is being dealt with. Now, well, I just had to take that opportunity. Come on. No, I was going to do it, but then it wasn't part of that agenda item, really. So the very last item, where is this lady down the back? Charlie Clark this is her first night tonight, and last night, her first night where she walks out the door and doesn't And I just wanted to say, Charlie, thank you very much on behalf of this committee, and maybe others will have a comment too, but I have very much appreciated your presence in this chamber and in the meetings that I've attended since I came back onto this council. You're just a delight to work with. I'll be sorry that you're not here, although I'm sure that we've got a good replacement coming up through the ranks, clearly taught by you. And I do hope you very much enjoy the new role up at the City of Perth. So, yeah, on behalf of my committee, unless anybody else wishes to make a comment, I do thank you for all the work you put in.